Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here with you today. Today on Hidden Superpowers, my name is Ashley Lee, and I am so excited to be here with you today. Today, we are focusing on the facets of a visionary, right? That's some of our superpowers, is to be a visionary. And what does that mean to be a visionary? Well, a really beautiful person named Kristen Myrick Shepherd had shared with us a meaning that I thought was very valuable to share with the world. Seers, that is, people who can see the energies of life, penetrate the motivating forces that influences other people, events, and circumstances. So what does that mean, right? How can we penetrate the motivating forces that influence people, events, and circumstances? How can we do that? Well, in our world, our physical, real world, what we see and what we believe and what we transmit out in the world, as I've shared on my quantum energy healing series, is that what we think turns into particles or wave frequencies that come out of our brain. So what we see is we take in information, and then what we do is we process that information in our mind, our brain, and then we create thoughts, we create beliefs, we create thought streams and ideas about how our world is. And when we do this, what happens is we start to interact when we emit these brainwave frequencies out to the world. We start to entangle and support and integrate with the quantum field. And these quantum particles, these really teeny particles that many seers can see physically with their eyes, they start to interact and dance and move around, and then they move around and impact atomic particles, molecular particles, particles that we can see and visualize and interpret as reality. And so that's how seers have the ability to penetrate with motivating forces to influence things around us. We all do it because many of us see with our eyes. Even blind people, people who have visual difficulties or challenges, also see the world, right? They see with their mind's eye, they see inside of themselves, or they see shadows or other aspects of their reality, and they start to create constructs of their reality with their ability to see beyond what the physical eyes can represent. So let's talk deeper about what a visionary is. The idea and the opportunity, the sensory experience of seeing is multifaceted. So let's go into some of those in-depth ideas of what those mean. So with the physical eye, most people in our world take in visual light. They absorb visual light. They absorb looking at the world around them. They see atoms actually emit light, different colors of light, and different facets of energy, so to speak, protons and neutrons, other things inside the atoms emit light, and we can see that physically with our eyes. Our eyes, from a DNA perspective, are programmed to see light structures and atomic structures that way. And some of us, and I think all of us, have the opportunity to master this degree of seeing is with our eyes. What if we can illuminate through our eyes the truth and share the truth with other people in our world, right? Animals, plants, all of it. We can see a deeper depth of what is really there. We could see the quantum field. We could see emotional energies, all kinds of other energies we'll discuss further. But isn't that exciting? So your eyes, your physical eyes, have the opportunity to bring in light and absorb light from the outside world, and it can also emit light, emit opportunities. Now let's talk for just a moment about our third eye, right? We might even someday need sunglasses for them. Might need to be in a little bit of a triangular idea. But everybody might be aware of what the third eye is. What does the third eye mean, right? This idea that our brain has the idea when we close our physical eyes, we can visualize abstract concepts, metaphorical concepts, literal concepts inside our mind. It's very exciting. We can create different constructs, then put it down on paper or explain it orally and participate it within our physical world, what we see, feel, and experience. Right? And so then in our mind's eye, this picture is to give an idea that in our mind's eye, it's the universe within inside of us. And it's actually true. We actually connect to our physical brain and nervous system, but we also connect to the higher mind, I call it, universal mind, that has omniscient, which means all-knowing, information everywhere, that we can access that information anytime when we get clear, centered, and focused, right? And I want to talk about the other way of seeing. We can see outside the visual light spectrums. So this picture depicts an idea that we could see quantum particles, quantum energies. I see them. I see neutrinos, torinos, other gamma rays, X-rays, UV light. I can see that with my physical eyes. Sometimes it's challenging to navigate driving or other adult activities where time and space and linearity are somewhat required in our universe, in our world, in our reality, to drive on a two-dimensional, so to speak, street so that we don't hit other cars or do anything like that. So what if we can learn to master our multisensory and multifaceted way of seeing in the world? Bringing light in, emitting light, and seeing within the greater cosmos. Let's talk for a moment about seeing in multisensory facets. What does that mean? Well, here is a wonderful picture that describes a person broken into 7 individuated parts, so to speak, right? There's the real atomic person in the middle, wearing a beautiful white shirt and having her arms crossed. And then there's other aspects of her. Well, many seers, and I really do believe that all of us can develop the sense of seeing when we let go of what we believe reality is. So if we believe reality is logical, linear, rational, and time limited, we will have a unifocal or myopic viewpoint of the world that really is here in front of us. And so we'll end up collapsing all those 6 other versions of her into that one physical atomic one and say that's real, all those others are not. But what if that's not true? Because many seers, right, talk about seeing auras around your body, right? And so this was pretty cool depiction of the different facets of this person. And I love that there's this element of color. There's this element of air where this person is all connected to the 7 parts of herself. And we have many parts of ourselves. I want to share with you that the truth is that these colors represent consciousness. They represent a different way of being and experiencing the world. They carry in them ideas of understanding. So that's where the idea of chakras come from. So for example, the orange red, right, that can represent feeling supported by life, feeling okay to feel your emotions. What if the yellow is about, right, standing in your power and being able to recognize the truth of who you are? What about that green color, that heart-centered focus? And that blue colored, the idea that you can express the truth of you in all the ways that you are. Maybe sometimes, regardless of how the other person or other influences in our lives are creating that. experience to express. And then that beautiful indigo purple color. What if that is about the idea that we can see the bigger picture? And then what if we have the higher pinks and magentas colors, explaining the higher heart, that heart where we feel one with everything in the whole world, and we feel connected that way through that heart-centered consensus consciousness. And now, this other multi-sensory facets, not only do the colors represent a consciousness, but these different aspects of her could represent different other energies that we could be tuning into when we sense somebody's auras or colors around them. For example, what if the orange energy represented the emotional body? And what if the emotional body of how they're experiencing, this girl is experiencing emotions, what if it can be any color of the spectrum? What if you're attuned to seeing people's emotional energies? There are many young children who I talk to regularly, and they say, I see red coming from my mom and I hate red. Why do they hate red? What does red represent in a negative state or an ill state or a conflictual state? Represents anger, represents irritation, upset, demand, frustration, right? Sometimes kids say, I hate seeing black around a person. What if the black represents not our true nature? And what is our true nature? It's love. And love flowing through us every minute of the day, irregardless of how we feel. And so what if sometimes we feel icky, terrible, and bad? Our energy does what? It shuts down, right? It goes zip. And when it shuts down and the life force energy gets less, what happens to the colors around us representing the consciousness? It's lack of life force energy. That's what creates illness, disease, symptoms, conditions, and pain and suffering. When we do that, the kids and other people who can see colors around your body see the life force energy diminished. And it looks horrible. Why? Because it's not our life. It's not life and love and living. It's the absence of that. Many kids talk about how they see golden energy or clear energy or white energy around a person. And when you ask them, when they see that, how do they feel? And they say, I feel good. I feel that the other person is feeling good. Why? Because the golden energy represents oneness, connectedness, and togetherness, unity. They feel that that person is open to have a communication with and have a relationship with, that they feel safe and wonderful to have a hug with and experience life with. That white energy represents us feeling connected to God and source and all that is. That helps us really connect to the higher consciousness that we truly are. And that clear energy, what if we just cleared our energy and had the life force energy go through us, fill us up? And it didn't have to have any meaning. We went to that 0 point, that still point, that space of no judgment. Lots of kids love clear energy because we love talking to and being with people who are absent of judgment. So there are many facets in which we can see the energies around us. Let's dive a little deeper into this idea. I wanted to talk about physical energies. I could say that all of us would agree that we can see physical energies. We can see this woman stretching, activating her muscles, right? Activating her core energy, her body. We can sense that she feels like stretching is amazing. She feels at ease with it. She feels comfortable with it, right? Those are physical attributes that we see from the molecular biology, the atomic biology of the person. In this picture, it shares an absence of emotional energy, so to speak, because we don't see her face. We do see her body, We see that she's not completely stressed about creating this pose. At the same time, it's stretching her ability to work with her body in ways that she would like to. So she feels very calm and peaceful in this move. So that's some emotional energy that we can witness physically in a person. But I'm talking around these energetic. So what else do we see? Do we see that she maybe feels good spiritually? Does she feel good emotionally and mentally? Well, mentally, it might be a stretch, right? Because maybe she wants to be at work, or maybe she wants to be at home and not be at the gym stretching and doing these yoga moves, right? So it could be lots of things that we could look into. And why is this important? Why do we want to see the energies of life around us? Well, if we know how she's feeling and sensing the world around her, or we feel that inside of ourselves, then we have a greater connection when we come up to work next to her, or work with her, or train her, or she's training us, right? So we end up facilitating the relating, the conversation, and the experience so much deeper. We can connect on a heart-centered way of energetic relating with each other. Let's talk about this energy for a moment. It was somewhat challenging to find emotional energies around people in a photograph, right? So this was one illustration that I could say that I see in people from their emotional states. A lot of times their emotional states come from their heart because we believe feelings are heart-centered. Well, sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. But when we believe that strongly, I can see that physically coming from their body, this emotional energy from their chest center. And in this case, it's this vibrant blue, the purple and indigo colors, hot pink, magenta, a light inside, and green, which represents heart energy, for example. I could also ask the energy, what is it actually specifically saying to me? From emitting from that person, that living object, so to speak, a plant or a animal. I can see this energy emitting from them from the emotional standpoint. And sometimes when it's negative, let's say, it's not healing, it's negative, it looks a little muddy, it looks a little gray, it looks a little brown, it looks a little black, it's not as vibrant. That star energy that if I call it, the kids call it, that our spiritual essence is literally illuminating our emotions. This kind of picture coming from a person's body or chest tells me that they're highly connected emotionally to their higher self, to their higher senses. It gives me that indication. It shares with me a little more in depthly. So I might start a conversation with them in the emotional realm. Like, I sense you're feeling really good about yourself today and seeing the world from a higher perspective. Is that true? And then that opens up that conversation of what they're emitting and what they're sharing. And I connect with them on that heart-centered space. Let's talk about the next space. Again, that star energy is illuminating from the person. But it's even more illuminating out into their energetic field, further out from their physical body and where their skin ends, right? And so what does this represent? To me, this represents a pictograph or an idea of their spiritual energy. What are they experiencing spiritually? Are they walking into life, walking into the relationship of getting ready to talk to you or me or others? And do they feel connected to all the world around them? Do they feel connected in such a way that created this shape going around their body that emulates the idea of that they're ready, they have action, they're ready to go, they're ready to bring this spiritual information and knowledge through to the physical world, is what this represents to me. And the really awesome thing is we can reality negotiate with everyone and share for a moment. What does that mean? I see this amazing spiritual energy around you. What are you feeling? What are you sensing? Is that true? And in your truth, what would you like to share about it? Right? Opening that opportunity for conversation. What about seeing energies inside living objects? Well, let's talk about that for just a minute. This is one amazing photograph that they made of a person meditating and activating their auric field, right? And the different colors and the different consciousness that it represents. Other people call it their Merkaba, or their idea of what is around them, what is encapsulated in their individuated state of being. And how are they going to set the tone, the emotions, the thoughts for their energetic being? Right? That's what she's doing in meditation. That's what I experience as her reality. And then when she's complete with that process, I may ask her, what did you create inside of yourself? Right? Because it looked magnificent. Let's talk about a little bit about plants and animals. I chose this photograph to show how life force energy flows through the seed and creates this plant growing, right? And I can almost see, even in this photograph, the clear energy around this largest stalk seed that's coming through, receiving life force energy from the sun and the photons, and the energy and nutrients and water from the earth. But I can also see slightly around the edges of this plant a lot of clear energy. So this is clearly, this plant is living in its own clarity of understanding. It's part of the life cycle, it's part of the earth, it's part of its process. It's here to do its job, its purpose, its process. And it's very clear. Some plants to me are not so clear. They have muddy auras around them. And when I inquire the information inside the plant, what is the muddiness? What is the disease? What is the problem? What is going on? A lot of times it's influences from sentient beings, beings like us humans that know we're alive. See, the plant is alive, but it may not have the consciousness to know that it's alive. It interacts through its own DNA and its own programming. But when we mess with it, fiddle with it, cajole it, can conjure it, and do different things to push the energy of life, a lot of times it may pollute the plant. Hybridization, GMO, lots of other things that we've done as a way to support the world. We didn't know that it impacted the world in such ways. It impacted the nature of things. So it is a challenge sometimes with our sentience, knowing that we are alive and how we manipulate the world around us. And so our opportunity is with our superpowers is, how can we see the world, hear the world, feel the world, experience the world in such a way where we become its stewards, its resources, and support it in ways we never knew were possible. I invite us all to consider those when we plant our next seeds. This is a pictograph, a little bit wiggly. Obviously, the photographer changed the aperture and the setting of exposure. But this is how I see cities when I'm flying over at night on an airplane. This is how I see the cities. Not necessarily slowed down in time like the aperture and the way in which the lights, reach the film, so to speak. But I want to share with you, this was an excellent graphic to illustrate how a city has auras around it too. A city carries a consciousness. A school carries a consciousness. A house carries a consciousness. And many times it's many consciousnesses, many belief systems, values, society. This is an ideal picture that describes the society's belief systems and the consciousness within. Like even maybe the squiggly lights on the far edge of the corner on the right-hand lower side. What are those squiggly lines? So when it's strange to me, I'll ask those squiggly lines, what do you mean? What's happening? What is that illustration sharing with me that I can see? And it'll share. Maybe people feel overwhelmed in that certain area because it's our sentience. It's our consciousness of how we interact with our world around us. That's what we first saw, right? How we have forces that impact our world. It's our consciousness that impacts our world around us. And we actually impact buildings, each other, and the planet with how we see, view, and believe the world is to be. I want to talk for just a moment about the concept of divine witnessing. Divine witnessing is the opportunity when we see what's happening in our world. When we see what's happening, we can actually change people. So a wonderful colleague, an amazing inspirational man that is sharing his work with the world in his miraclescourse.com. Garrett John Laporto has created a video that I want to share with you for just a few moments about the concept of divine witnessing and how you change people. Let's review that video for just a few moments.
You may not like how things are going. You may not agree with those who seem to have power over your happiness. But here is a great secret of life. You have way more influence than you realize. Gandhi called this influence truth force, love force, soul force. It is the inherent power in you to conjure the truth and the very best in other people. It is the power in you to change people's hearts and minds by changing the way you see them, by changing the way you observe them. Nobel physicist Max Planck said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Scientists have discovered that when a teacher is merely told a student has a higher IQ, that student's IQ rises to meet the teacher's expectations. Expecting the best from people brings out the best in people. But the reverse is also true. Seeing the worst in people brings out the worst in people. Your consciousness has the power to conjure the very best or the worst in everyone you observe, even at a distance. Our friends, our families, our children, our coworkers, our police, even our presidents, we have the power to change each and every one of their hearts and minds simply by changing our own hearts and minds about them. We all have darkness in us, but we also have the light. And in every moment we have another chance, another choice of whether darkness or the light is given reign over our consciousness. What you stand witness for in others is strengthened in them by the power of your observation. When you look for the worst in someone, when you make them wrong in your mind, when you refuse to see the best in them, you are committing a spiritual assault of the worst kind. For you are testifying against their ability to choose the light, standing witness for the darkness in them, and strengthening its power over their heart and mind. If you've ever faced a hostile crowd, a hostile cop, a hostile lover, you felt the destructive force of another's contempt for you, do not give in to this way of seeing. Stand witness for the light in others. The unassailable divine spark forever shines in the hearts of every man, woman, and child, just waiting to be called forward. When you call on the divine spark in someone, you lend it the strength to prevail in their consciousness. The power of your divine witnessing calls forth the truth in other people's minds. It calls forth the love in their hearts. It calls forth the grace and the beauty of their souls. Divine witnessing is the most powerful form of nonviolence because it heals the very source of violence. It turns your enemies into friends, even when you thought they were deplorable and wrong. In a place where you see no light, you make your own. You call upon the divine spark within you and invite it to reveal itself in those who oppose you. The divine spark in your heart ignites itself in others through the blazing light and love of your consciousness. Witness for that. Strengthen that. Insist upon that. The truth in me calls out to the truth in you. For it is only that I will stand witness to. It is only that I am determined to see. It is only that I will testify for. For to condemn you would be to condemn me, and we are the same. And so I insist on regarding you as true and good and wise and kind. And so it will be, because that is what we all want to see.
Now let's talk for just a moment after you've seen the idea of divine witnessing. When we see the truth and the love in people, we begin to create our reality in a very different way. So what we see creates our reality. If we see people being negative, they'll respond and be negative. If we see people being positive, they have an opportunity to open and be that positive person that you know they are. So what we see creates our reality. When we change our perspective, our reality changes. And we have the opportunity to literally reformat the molecules in our body, in our lives, to change and create what we want to see. Knowing that we are the proof we choose to see. And I'd like to close with this idea of creating a synoptic pillar of light, where we see all together in unison the world we choose to create. We are capable of doing this. Let's activate our hidden superpower of seeing and being a visionary to create this world together. I found this illustration of this idea of creating a synoptic pillar of light through this emerald diamond. As you can see, turned technically upside down, but really maybe right side up, is the pinnacle point of the diamond, has many facets around it. In this diamond's case, it's 8 facets around it, an octagon. I mean, what is it? I think it's an octagon, an 8-sided figure. And inside of that, each of those angles, those triangles going up to the pillar, the pinnacle of the light we see together, is different facets. So what if it's okay we have different viewpoints and different perspectives, but we all come together seeing that same point of light? We really do have that opportunity to bring all of what we see together inside of heart-centered consensus consciousness. Regardless of our differences and our perspectives and our beliefs, we can come together to choose love over fear. I invite all of us to activate this hidden superpower of ours called being a visionary and a seer. Thank you for joining me today.